Okay, the way I finally attached the harness to it, you can see here's the harness here. Let me remove this stupid tripod. And you can basically see right there how I attached it. Okay, you can kind of see it coming over here to the print head. And like I said, it's best when you're just before you even start repairing this thing, to go in and mark this thing, how it's oriented. Take note of how it's oriented, because is it going this? Is it going, this way, this direction, over here, or is it twisted the other way around? So, definitely make sure that you not only put a mark where this wire tie is, but make note of the direction this is running, because that's critical. Because if this were running the other way, if it were running, along here instead, and this is the back of the machine I'm pointing at, if we're running this way, it would actually start interfering with your filament here, and it's feeding into the head. So you got to be careful. But basically, if I had an x-ray view of this harness is running up over here, and then you can kind of see it, right there, how it's running. And again, this is the rear of the machine. You can see the spool holder there. You can see how that's orientated. So basically, I have the harness cutting over like this, and then it loops down in there. Again, this is the rear of the machine on this side. As you can see, the spool holder. I have it looping down, and then going, into the inside of the machine, through that hole. Now, like I said, it would be good, to have some kind of a, something holding this cable harness away, because this here will often scrape against this thing as it raises and lowers. And maybe originally it might not have done that, but this might have gotten a little fumbled around from the repair job. So, but in any event, it wouldn't be a bad idea to try to tie that down, but I haven't gotten around to it. But that's how it, how it goes in the machine. So that gives you something to, base it off of. But again, if you'd marked it, if I'd marked it and made note of it, it'd been a lot less of a hassle. Yeah, but I will say this about Robo 3D, and this is the only reason, that I did not actually send the thing back, because the thing actually installed and printed perfectly right out of the box. I mean, I was really impressed with that. I haven't had to calibrate it or level a bed or anything with it. And like I said, these are some of the things I printed with it just right out of the box, like a little, gear keychain, and, some things like this. As you can see, little test cubes, and, the thing is their settings on their software actually were kind of bad, so a lot of these things don't actually work right. They're a little tight, because if you use their matter control engine, the thing makes your prints dimensionally inaccurate. Like this gear, would be about, 20 mil too wide or so on each side. So it makes, like, this gear's fatter than it should be. It's wider than it should be in the, left to right or up and down, the X, Y dimensions. The Z is accurate because that's a layer dimension, but, anyway, but, I printed, like I said, several things with it, including this, the first thing I ever designed for a 3D printer. So I just, threw that together in Rhino in about 3 minutes, and, you know, just to see if I could import my own STL files and so forth. And yeah, it went, you know, really quite nicely. I was impressed. You know, no support structures or anything were required to print this. So, and it's actually, and you can see here's a failed print. You know that they, you know, their starter filament they give you actually is pretty lousy. Apparently, it, you know, you can get a little bit out of it. You know, I was able to do like this comb and, you know, this whistle, which doesn't really quite work, but again, it's going to be dimensionally inaccurate. That might have something to do with it, but, and like I said, I tried printing this sphere, and here's where the filament finally crapped out on me. But, you know, and I got like a, I don't know, a 10% infill on this or something, but it's actually quite rigid. You know, I'm actually applying a lot of force here on this thing, and, you know, you don't really see it deflecting, you know. I mean, it's actually quite rigid. This is, you know, PVA filament, by the way, or PVA, VLA, I guess. Anyway, the fact of the matter is, you know, I'm actually really impressed with how solid this thing is, despite, you know, how little infill I got on it and everything else. Otherwise, most of this stuff I printed, you know, with just default settings, and it's all printed medium quality. I hadn't even tried messing with high quality or low quality yet. But, you know, like I said, printed this little house too, and this is when the thing, let me switch to close up here. This is the first thing I noticed, that I actually started having these little inclusions, this char on it, and you know, you can kind of see, you know, right there, those 3 black spots, and, you know, and I was like, you know, what's that? You know, I thought it was just the print head, like, you know, dwelling too long in one area and denaturing the plastic, but that's in fact not what was happening. We had a leaking extruder head, and you can actually see it, you know, when I did this print, which this thing took like, you know, it's a little cityscape is what it is. So this took like, you know, 10 or 11 hours to print out. But you can see, you know, some of the inclusions here, like that, is a particularly bad one. That's when I knew, after I saw this, that I knew for sure I had a leaking extruder, because that's not part of the print. And that's some kind of a booger or something there. There's actually about 20 or 30 of them in here. It's just hard to see on this camera. But, you know, you know, that's when I knew I had a bad extruder, and I decided to, you know, talk to him. But anyway, I still did all this stuff with minimal effort. I mean, this is like default settings. I got this off Thingiverse, and, you know, this, and, you know, a lot of this I got off Thingiverse, just to try to stress test this printer. Because, see, when I first got this printer, you know, I could hear the fan was making funny noises, and I was aware that they had this problem with the fan and the leaking extruder, but I, you know, I wasn't sure if I was going to get one, you know, if I'd filtered, you know, there's still some bad inventory out there in the store shelves. Well, the fact of the matter is, as it turns out, there was, when I bought this printer, still some bad inventory. Let's see. I bought this printer on, I think the 9th of November, and I received it on the 13th of November, and it's now currently the 1st of December right now. I actually got my kit in Friday, but I hadn't had time to mess with it until now. But yeah, anyway, I printed out quite a few things until I started having inclusions, you know, like that. You know, it's got some black spots in it. In fact, you can't really tell in this camera, you know, how bad it is. But yeah, these are actually bumps, you know, is what they are. The little, you know, like I said, plastic pieces of junk. But like I said, for the first, you know, 4 or 5 prints I did, and, you know, like this, you know, basically had nothing like that in it. You know, no problems at all. You know, but again, it wasn't until, you know, I got to this house that I actually started having those problems. And anyway, that's what made me decide to contact Robo 3D and see if we can resolve this. Because again, you know, this is my first 3D printer, and I've been really intimidated by, you know, getting one of these things. That's why I've been researching the issue for like a year and a half before I purchased an actual 3D printer. But, you know, again, I thought it was going to be a big headache and, you know, to get things leveled in and all this other stuff. But it actually was just simple as could be. I mean, I really did just literally plug this thing together. I followed the video they sent, you know, with the printer, which they give you this little, you know, kind of thumb drive thing with an SD card in it that, you know, has a video and the initial software release on it. But at any rate, the fact of the matter is that, you know, yeah, it was simple. You just watch the video and, you know, plug the thing in and disconnect it, and install the software, install the driver, and then you're good to go. And the software is actually, you know, simplistic, and I'm sure, you know, that when you're, you know, more experienced at 3D printers, you know, you'll want something more sophisticated by this. But since this is an open source printer, unlike, you know, like the Da Vinci or, you know, Cube or somebody, you know, it's an open source printer, so, you know, you got the option of using other software like Cura and, you know, other engines they have out there, you know. With this, you just have to configure them. Again, I hadn't gotten to that point. I'm still in the simple stage, you know, while I evaluate this. But the software is functional, you know. This is a very small monitor, by the way. It's like a 17-inch or so monitor, but it's, you know, old style. This actually is the first 3D monitor, I mean, the first flat screen monitor I ever bought, like back in 2002, I think it was. So it still works after all these days. So Samsung's not a bad monitor. At least it wasn't back then. But anyway, I mean, it's pretty simple to use, and I'm not going to make you an instruction video on how to use it, but it's a lot of it's pretty self-explanatory. But anyway, that's the reason why, instead of just flat out sending the thing back, I decided to give these guys a chance and see if I can fix the thing, because I actually really like this printer enough, even though I did not want a headache. I mean, that was just a big, you know, kind of a big deal of mine to not want any kind of frickin' headache when I got my first 3D printer. But like I said, I had such good luck getting started with this thing. You know, again, it print perfectly, you know, no alignment problems, nothing. I mean, I was just really impressed with that. Because, you know, some people have had problems, you know. I'll show you my dirty ashtray. But people have, you know, had a lot of problems, you know, with these printers, I guess, being racked and shipping or something. And, you know, and I'm sure not everybody has had that, but I mean, some people have, and, you know, again, that made me nervous too, reading reviews like that. But no, I mean, that's why I like this thing so much. It was simple and fast, and again, I don't know anything about 3D printers as far as hands-on. This is the first printer I have ever had, you know. It's that Robo 3D printer. I've never even seen one in person, you know. Again, done plenty of research, hundreds of hours of research on the internet, but again, it's just the first one I've ever seen in person. So you know, to have this experience with it, it's been really impressive. You know, that's why I was kind of thinking that even a novice user, I mean, somebody that's not technical, like I am, I'm, you know, an electrical engineer, but, you know, people that aren't technical could actually use this product. And I'm actually a really good test bed, because even though I'm an engineer, you know, I stumble and make plenty of mistakes. That's why actually getting a printer that I had to calibrate and everything was intimidating. I tend to have bad luck with things like that. You know, now if I had a lot of experience, you know, with this thing, and, you know, I've been doing it for quite a while, hey, that's one thing. I mean, you know, because you're eventually going to have to replace worn out parts and stuff like that on this type of technology, you know, given the state of it. But that's why I decided to go ahead and, like I said, give it a shot and get this kit and try to make a video, and, you know, in case somebody else has to do it, and we'll see how difficult it is. I'm sure they do probably have some kind of instruction video, but right now they're kind of understaffed in their email department, so it usually takes them a few days, you know, at least a day or two, to get back to your emails. So, you know, but that's a growing company for you, you know, that happens. I mean, you know, I've been in their shoes, so I mean, I know what they're going through, you know, as far as trying to go through growth and, you know, and put this new technology out there, and they've got a lot of problems. I've been there before, you know, so I mean, I kind of know what they're going for, so I have a little bit of, you know, forgiveness, you know, that I can have for that, because I mean, I do know what kind of growing pains they're going through. So, but they do have a good product. I mean, I'm just super impressed. You know, with, even though it's in the cool, you know, I was looking at Da Vinci and I was like, man, that's a cool printer with the LCD readout and it's big, you know, like a microwave oven and stuff like that for only $500, you know. But still, these guys have done a really good job with this printer. I mean, even this plate actually attaches onto this with magnets. So, I mean, it's actually something you can detach and presumably, you know, clean if you needed to. But I've just been using the scraper kit and so forth. They provide you, you know, a little scraper to scrape the thing off. I've been using Aquanet hairspray, you know, and it works perfectly. I haven't, you know, tried ABS or anything, but I did buy all these different filaments. And this is filament from a company called Hatchbox, which is really cheap, but it's worked so far. That's what I actually did most of those, like that ball and some things with. And I mean, it's so far it's been a pretty good filament. Now, I don't know if this has absorbed moisture though. You know, these filaments ought to be kept dry. You know, it might be a good idea if you live in kind of a humid environment to get some of these, you know, those silicon gel desiccant packs. You know, you can see they have one in there, and kind of keep these things sealed in like an ice chest or something, you know, styrofoam ice chest with a bunch of those in there. And you can actually put them in the microwave. You can look at on the internet and see that you can put them in the microwave and actually rejuvenate it. I'm sure you can also do it in the oven, you know, to rejuvenate those packs, because they do have to be demoisturized every now and then. Otherwise they'll not absorb. They can only absorb so much moisture, and you don't want to have them run out of their capacity, but you can regenerate them. But anyway, it'd be a good idea to invest in Amazon. You know, if you're buying this in Amazon or someplace, buy it, you know, for about 10 or 15 bucks. You can buy like a whole gob of those things, and you know, and it might be good to keep your filament dry instead of leaving it out for several weeks like I have while I've been trying to fix this thing.